Welcome to episode 6 of Creative Wordsmithing. We're going to be taking a ride on the Night Train. Night Train is a national bestseller by Martin Amus. It's a postmodern literary work. Okay, so what I plan to do in this video is show you one final example of what kind of patterns the TAD system can reveal in writing samples. So let's just get busy with it. Okay, so just like the other two samples that we looked at, I have scanned in the first 10 pages of Night Train. And I'm going to be using the exact same color coding scheme that I've used the last two times. Thought's going to be purple, action's going to be red, dialogue's going to be blue, and setting is going to be yellow. And yes, I have chosen to code all physical descriptions of characters as setting. So the first thing that becomes apparent looking at this, just glancing at it, is that this looks way different than the Dan Brown example. This is mostly purple and yellow. Mostly thought and setting. So the first thing I have to note is that this chapter very clearly begins by immersing the reader into the mind of the main character. The character's personality and psychology is explored before the first scene even takes place. So for the first two paragraphs exclusively, we are discussing the perceptions of the main character, the narrator. And we have one line of dialogue in here. So this is just a description of where she works. This is more of the narrator's opinions. Okay, so this is a physical description of the narrator. You'll notice in the Dan Brown example, there were a few sporadic lines of yellow, but already we've got way more focus on setting than we ever did in that writing style. Some more perceptions, some more physical descriptions, some more perceptions. Here we have one line of dialogue, and here we are, you know, the top of the document is way up here. We have to scroll all the way down here to get our first action. That is totally different than the Dan Brown example, and it's totally different than the Douglas Adams example too. Okay, so we get one more line of dialogue, and then we're shooting into this major tirade about perceptions in the police force. Goes on for quite a long time. Here we've got some more scene setting for a new scene. So another conclusion I've come to is that there is very little movement in these scenes. It's clear that thought patterns drive the entire narrative, which is the opposite of commercial fiction. Commercial fiction is driven by action and dialogue. Okay, another big honking description of an actual setting. Now remember, in the Dan Brown example, we only had two places where we saw a big paragraph of yellow, and those were physical descriptions. They were pretty superficial physical descriptions. Here, we're actually getting descriptions of what the location is like. Scrolling down, we get, again, a little bit of action here and here. Some very short dialogue, so deadpan they don't even put dialogue tags on here. They don't even bother to say he said, she said. It's very minimalistic. And then we're back into this. She's examining the crime scene, and instead of this being consumed with actions, she looked here and moved over here, she's just sort of contemplating it. And we're scrolling down. Here she's describing the crime scene. Here's something interesting to note. Because we are so immersed in the main character's consciousness, wrapping thought around the dialogue is left out. It's just totally unnecessary because we are just so deep into her head. Something else that's interesting to note is that just like the Chuck Palahniuk examples, this story is written in present tense, and it's also using the word you, second person. Okay, so we've got some more descriptions of the crime scene. And then here's the end of the story. It just ends with one line of action and then one final description of the scene. So in my final analysis, the writing style is mostly driven by thought, with a strong focus on setting. Action and dialogue receive far less attention. So this book is not very plot heavy, but it is very character heavy. And in order to get that attention to character, there's a lot of concentration on character perceptions and setting. Okay, so that was the first 10 pages of Martin Amus's Night Train, and that was my third and final example of using the TAD system. Remember, with my first example, Douglas Adams's comedy writing, all elements were evenly mixed. In my second example, Dan Brown, commercial fiction, two of the elements were favored over the other two, dialogue and action. Now with this literature example, the other two are favored, thought and setting. The TAD system is a super powerful tool, and I hope you guys check out Creative Wordsmithing on Kindle and Nook to learn more about it. Next time I hope to talk about some different stuff that you can look for when you're doing a genre analysis about creative fiction. As always, feel free to follow my blog and comment below, and keep an eye out for my new book, The Omega Principle. See ya!